Hey, everybody, welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you today. Very excited. We got Mike rejoining us again. We got Glenn rejoining us again. It's been too long. I'm going to get you guys do an intro real quick here, but before I do that, make sure that everybody at home like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all those good stuff. You can also support us directly through the super thanks and super comments and all that stuff if you guys want to hit it up. If you have any thoughts, questions, or anything else, put them in the comments section and we will engage them directly throughout. Today we are talking service. This is the start of service week and we are going to be getting into it very shortly. So, Mike, I'm going to hit you up first. Give us a little 10, 15 second who you are, where you come from, all that good stuff, and then we'll get into the combo.
All right, Mike Panone, in Salt Lake area in the States, obviously, was a infantryman and a recce guy in the Marine Corps, and then went over to the Army and did various stuff in the SOF community. And now I just run a training business mostly for law enforcement, but I do some stuff for civilians and some international work as well.
Bam. Glenn, how about you? 10, 15 seconds?
Yeah, my name is Glenn Kirkland. I served in the Canadian Army for just under 10 years and recently got back from 10 months in Ukraine with the Ukrainian Army. And I own Leap Fitness, which is law enforcement applicant prep. And we do applicant preparation for law enforcement agencies across British Columbia.
Bam. And we got two former service members, three, four service members. It's gonna be good times. I think we got a good show set up for today. So, service defined. Let's define it. I've been looking into this all afternoon, and so I'm gonna give you the general thing, and then I'm gonna pull up a little bit about what else I looked up. So it says service is a noun, work that is done for others as an occupation or business, the performance of work or duties for a superior or as a servant, an act or a variety of work done for others, especially for pay. Now, that didn't seem like the whole thing, so I went to ChatGPT and I started like playing with it a bit. So I'm going to read this and then we'll get your guys' thoughts on it. The verb service, in the context of the human condition, refers to the act of providing assistance, support, or help to others, typically to meet their needs or fulfill a specific purpose. It encompasses a wide range of activities and can be related to various aspects of human life, including but not limited to, of course, customer service, public, community, social, humanitarian, etc., etc., etc. It goes into a long list of it. But when I ask you guys, when your first thoughts on service, what do you think? Glenn, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll work our way up. What are you thinking?
Well, service, I think, especially this time of year, we're all thinking Remembrance Day. And I'm fifth generation Canadian Army, and I always think service to Canada, service, to our country. Um, uh, we all join for different reasons, but I believe one common denominator is to serve the people that your fellow countrymen. And service to me is a lifetime commitment.
I like it. Mike, first thoughts on service?
It's I look at it as in the generic sense, what you read is correct, but it is dedication to something that is believed by you to be greater than yourself. So if you service to others, meaning that you are working for someone else's benefit before yours, and that the true benefit of it comes from the fact that you're helping someone. There's an emotional component to genuine service as opposed to servitude. That I think it is it's its own unique. It's its own unique topic. The idea that oftentimes selfless and service go together. Selfless service, because truth is, if it's not selfless, then it's not really service. It's just a business deal. So I look at it as pursuing something that is of benefit to someone else more than yourself, often at a hardship to yourself.
Ooh, that's a great definition. Shaun, first thoughts?
I'm with Mike, and I was struggling to figure out how he would explain what he just said so eloquently, because my initial thought was, man, an automotive service center can change my tires, but they're not serving. They're providing a service. And I think that's the key for me, serving or service. And when I say serving, I don't mean as a waiter at a table. I mean serving a greater cause, the greater good. a larger thing than yourself. And so that requires some selfless action that typically doesn't give you anything back in return other than the satisfaction of serving your fellow man.
That's interesting. Glenn, you got anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think the term like service and sacrifice, I think the reason why those go together so frequently is because people that serve often, if you're serving properly, you are sacrificing yourself to a greater cause. And again, the words Mike just said were perfect. Like I 100% agree. Just being a part of such a bigger organization, for example, like in the Army, your service is to a larger entity.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to touch on this because it piqued my interest. Is Mike? You said believed larger, right? So I'm wondering, do you think it needs to be like that is a personal choice just based on to what it is I want to serve, or do you need to have the organizational the background, basically, if you get what I'm saying? Mike, what do you think?
Do you mean as in be associated with a specific organization?
Yeah.
Versus you can do it individually. It's you can serve your community. You can, it's the old, help an old woman put her groceries in her vehicle or something like that. Like service is the concept that I'm going to do something and the return is that I'm doing a good deed, for lack of better terms. On the civilian side. On the military side, there's a lot more true sacrifice that's involved. And it's something that I think if you don't believe in it, it becomes a painful ordeal. If you believe in it, it just becomes a lifestyle. You understand that you've chosen something that you believe to be more important than yourself. And it oftentimes comes at a substantial, cost. I mean, all of us have seen and experienced it in a whole bunch of different ways, but you still believe in it. I never stopped believing in what I was doing as a soldier. I always, because it was that sense of service. I believe that there was something bigger than me that I was participating in that was worth that it gave me a emotional reward, not a definitely not a financial one, but an emotional and moral reward. I felt that I was doing something good, that making the world a better place, to be cliche. But if you do that, even in your own private setting, in your home, in your town, in your province, you're still serving, you're still conducting acts that you really aren't being compensated for, other than knowing that you've done something good.
Shaun, any thoughts on that?
I agree. And to build off that a little bit, perhaps, I think you can serve your fellow man, or as the example is made, it's a cliche, of course, but it works perfectly. Help an old lady carry her groceries to her car. You are serving the citizenry, to build off of our conversation yesterday, which was specifically about how to be a good citizen. So being a good citizen is literally taking that old lady's groceries to her car, opening the door for her, wishing her a good day. Once she's seatbelted in, close the door for her and give her a nod and carry on your way. And you don't have to look back for a wave from her. You don't have to look back to see if she is going to validate the thing that you just did. You just do it out of the genuine kindness of your heart with no expectation of anything back. Now, you can do that all your life randomly throughout the world. You can look for opportunities randomly to do that throughout the world. I think that the difference between doing a good deed for your fellow citizenry, being of service, is a good example. But what really puts a fine point on it, or what consolidates it, I feel, or more truly defines what service is on a minute to minute to minute basis, is you get in service of your country. So you can serve your fellow citizenry in the parking lot of Home Depot, or you can serve your country where you're standing next to other people to your left and right who are in the game of constantly serving. So there's random acts of kindness or random acts of service. But once you're serving your country in military, first responder, law enforcement, these kind of things, maybe your full-time job is serving a charitable organization, but you're doing it all day, every waking moment. Well, now you have a better understanding of service. So it's been my experience throughout life that, and I've met many people who serve outside of the first responder, law enforcement, and military who really do understand service. But every single serving member in those three organizations that I just listed off are 24/7 in the business of service, serving their country, serving their citizenry, serving their fellow man, even if they don't want to. You, through a process year after year after year, if you showed up and didn't understand what service means, in the first year of your full year service, you'll start to better understand the definition of service. And then after 10 years, even if you refuse to try and understand service, it's going to get beaten into you that service means this to you, dot, dot, dot. And it's a little bit different for everyone, but the common thread, and I would say 98% of anyone who's served their country or the higher cause, has a pretty common understanding of what it means to serve the citizenry or serve the man to your left and right. And so I feel that anyone can do service, anyone can understand service, but the clearest understanding of all is someone who does it 24/7 at great sacrifice.
Yeah. Glenn, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I love listening to Shaun. It's he puts everything so smooth. But yeah, doing the right thing when no one's looking. Like when I think of service and when I think of maybe non-military service or law enforcement service, I think of people doing the right thing when no one's around, just because it's the right thing to do. And I think a lot of that's lost now in today's society, because we're all about, I'm going to give this person, I'm going to help this person, but I'm going to post it to Instagram or, something like that, right? And we've if you did a workout and didn't post it, did it happen? Did you help someone? Did it happen? You hear about that all the time, and it's not a positive, but you do see a lot of people doing a lot of good out there, and you don't have to be in the army or law enforcement to do that stuff, right? So and when you're talking, when Shaun was talking service, you kind of touched a little bit on, serving maybe a higher cause. You see, I grew up being raised Catholic. The sacrifice and the service at the Catholic Church, that, in my example, was fantastic. It was that they were fantastic. So I can't say enough good things.
Absolutely. Mike, you had a thought?
Yeah, just to jump, what Shaun said, I thought was brilliant. And I think just the way I refine it is a random act of service is not the same as a life choice, a lifestyle of service. And I think that's the point. Like, you can do things here or there, but there's no requirement to it. Like I said, it's a random act of kindness kind of thing. It's another thing when you sign on the dotted line and say, I will do whatever it takes, whenever it takes to be done, day or night, 24/7. It's no longer a decision that I make every day. It's a decision I made that becomes my lifestyle. And I think that was a key point that I think you made brilliantly, Shaun, that it's a lifestyle. That's when we talk about service, it is something that's a chosen field in some capacity that is a lifelong pursuit, or as long as, for us, however many years we serve in the service, in the military. But I think that's the difference. You're still serving your community if you do nice things, but it's not the same as being dedicated, to a particular cause every day of the week, all year, without fail.
That's an interesting point too. I really like the thought of the lifestyle of service versus an act of service or acts of service, whichever way you want to look at it. But to live a lifestyle of service, you'll do the little things. And to your point, Glenn, when people aren't watching, right? Like opening the door for people, or picking up garbage off the side of the road when you see it, or little things that allude to a life of service. And I think, at least in my mind, I was giving a speech the other day, and I talked about, when we're in uniform, we'll do anything for the man next to us, right? Man or woman next to us, it doesn't matter. If they're in uniform beside us, I got your back no matter what. but the concept, I think, that some people have a hard time when they look at soldiers and say, wow, how could you do such a thing, is that we just do it for an expanded version of the man next to us, at least in my mind. So, like, being in the military, I looked at being a Canadian citizen, being in the Canadian military, as me serving the man next to me, which could be the city next to me, it could be the town next to me, it could be the province next to me, whatever it is. At least in my mind, that's the way I saw it. What do you guys think on is it just an expanded version of the man next to me in this lifestyle of service? Mike, I'm going to come back to you. What do you think?
I think it evolves into that. Initially, when we all started out, we were all brand new, privates, and on our first days, we were learning what it meant to be selfless, and selfless is a portion of service. You have to put everyone before yourself, and then over time, as Shaun said, 6, 8, 10, 12 years in, it gets hammered into you in one way or another. We all look at it a slightly different way, but it becomes part of our persona, part of our lifestyle. We understand that things need to be done that we don't have to do, but they still need to be done, and we do them because we understand that we're serving a greater good in some capacity. So it is. I think that it is definitely it definitely evolves into a lifestyle, but there has to be, unless you just intuitively have it in you to just be of service. I look at it as it has to have a dedicated purpose, and it has to become a lifestyle, something that you always do. And the military basically molds us in that manner. It models us that way, and it manifests itself in in all the things that we do. I mean, I'm not the only one, but if my phone rings at 2:30 in the morning, and it's one of the fellas, I answer the phone. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care if I'm getting up in an hour to get on a plane. If you call me, I will answer. That's my sense of service extended out past my obligation to serve. It's just the way I am now. It's just that lifestyle. And I think that is something that takes time to do, and it takes focus. If you don't have a dedicated venue that you serve within, whatever it is, if it's a nonprofit that you do 24/7, or you're a military member, or whatever, I think it's much more difficult to really build that lifestyle. And that lifestyle is where service really emanates from, where the example is set for everyone else.
Absolutely. Glenn, thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know I was serving when I was serving. I didn't know what that service was when I first joined, and I think it was something that the military ingrains in you over time. And you realize that the reason why you would sacrifice for the guy to the left and right is because that's who you're serving. And it didn't clue in, when I'm in a patrol in Afghanistan or sitting on a hill somewhere sweating. I didn't know I didn't know the good when it was happening. It wasn't until afterwards, when you got time to reflect on it, even immediately after, and then after action report, everyone's explaining what the greater good was, what the actual outcome was. Then you realize, holy Hannah, like, this was bigger than just me. And then you realize, well, this is all about. And I know that's when I look back at my service, those are the times I think about. I actually remember the AARs way more than some of the actual, gunfights, because you're hearing about how other people were doing their service to help you when maybe you didn't even see it.
Absolutely. Shaun, thoughts?
Yeah, I love what the fellas just said, because it gives, there's some good contextuality there. The idea that when I showed up to the military, I wanted to serve, I just didn't understand service. It's something that you got to learn over time, and it's not something that you can do on a 2-day or a weekend-long internet course. You can't get a certificate that you can hang in your office and say, I understand service. It don't work like that. It's something that requires some blood, sweat, and tears, longer than a weekend. And so no one can get qualified in service and put it on their resume. You can only earn your service and then maybe quietly talk about it like we are right now. None of us have to get into the nitty-gritty of what was done and what was said when we were serving, because we all feel it inside of us. Service is a feeling that is developed over time. No one can beat it into you. you beat it into yourself, and you through reflection, as Glenn said, those beatings that were being beaten into us for service, sometimes they're only understood decades later. I mean, now that I'm 60, I can look back at when I was 20 and see that though I was serving, I didn't understand how to do service as well as I do now. And I'm a veteran. And so how come I understand service better now than I did then, even though I was serving more then than I am now, perhaps? So I think these kind of conversations that we're having right now, that we can get some contextuality on what service meant to us then, what service means to us now, and how we made that leap from then to now, either intellectually or spiritually or emotionally or just the vibe of it. Service takes time, and it ain't a freaking internet qualification.
If only we could get an internet qualification called service. Mike, you got any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, it's what Shaun said is spot on. It reminds me of the whole the service, the understanding of service is like when I hear about all the mindset briefs. People are like, oh, they're gonna get a mindset brief. It's like, hey man, live a hard life. Like there's your mindset brief. Live a life of service. You'll understand service. Do really hard stuff. Okay, you'll build a mindset. I mean, it's like, you see it in the world that I work in with the the law enforcement and military stuff, and people want a mindset. I'm like, get in the ring, get hit in the mouth a couple times. It'll give you a mindset. It'll teach you about fighting way more than anything you can read or hear. And it's the same with service. Go out and actually do something that you don't have to do, that someone else benefits from, and see what that is like. That's the only way you're gonna understand it. And it's gonna take years. Like Shaun said, you're not gonna do it once and go, okay, I get it. I understand service now. It is a lifestyle, and you don't get to know the real benefit of it until all the way at the end. Okay. It's not in the windscreen, it's in the rearview mirror. That's where you recognize it. It's like, and some people, it's a bridge too far, but it has been singularly the most rewarding thing. My whole life has been of service in one capacity or another. And I don't regret it. I mean, I could have gone to Wall Street like my brother or whatever and done all that, but it didn't appeal to me, and it was never forced. I was fortunate to still be in the military when I recognized what it was that I really loved to do and why. But it again, like Shaun said, you can't take a course, you can't read a book, you have to actually get your digits on it and do it. You have to actually do it. Otherwise, you'll never really understand it.
Absolutely. Glenn, any additional thoughts on that?
No, I think you hit it on the head. Like it's like, yeah, it's something I served because I saw my father, my grandfather, and I saw that lineage of service, but I didn't know what it meant until I'm looking back at it. Hindsight is so clear. It's 2020. So I look back at my service, but at the time it was just what I was doing. It's almost like for me, it was like an easy way to do it because they told you what to wear and where to go to serve. The hard part was signing the dotted line to make that commitment to change your life, to fully embrace the service before you even knew what it was. You're going into the darkness before you even knew what the darkness was. And it wasn't until years later, for me anyways, looking back, that it's clear.
Absolutely. Now, I have a question on that, and you guys said it earlier, was, it's the right thing to do. You're just going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Well, where do you get that? Where do you figure out what the right thing to do is? Because what my right thing to do versus your right thing to do, they could be similar, but they're going to be shifted slightly. So do you think that it's primarily just the experiences that, we've had growing up or watching other people? Because I know lots of people who have no visible experience in their childhood of service, but still choose to serve. So I'm wondering where you guys think that comes from. Glenn, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on this because people need to be very particular in what they serve. They got to really believe in it. When I got on the first flight to Poland to get to Ukraine, because I knew that what I was doing and who I was going to be serving with was the right people to do this for. I knew that. I was out of the game for a long time. So I'm like, here I am leaving my cushy gig in White Rock, British Columbia, to and serve people I've never met, because I knew it was the right thing to do. I was fully committed. I knew that in my heart. So you have to know what you're doing is right and right for you. So I'm glad you touched on that, Chance.
Absolutely. Mike, any thoughts?
It's I have to agree with 100%. There's epiphanies where all of a sudden you go, wow, this is what I need to be doing. And there's the kind of longer, slower burn, which we usually have as younger troopers, where it's like you start to do stuff and you're like, whoa, you realize that this is something that you want to do. Sometimes because you get to jump out of airplanes or whatever, or do cool stuff, and you're like, jump out of a helicopter into the ocean at 2 a.m. You're like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, I think I could do this for a long time. It's fun. But those are the dopamine hits. It's the bigger picture stuff. It's the harder things that push you in that direction. Or like Lynn said, there's an epiphany. You just go, this is what I need to do. And it's in your soul. You're like, no, it doesn't make any sense, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't have to. I know the answer already. And I think that is something that if you haven't experienced it on either side, most of us will get the slow burn side. Some of us get the instant epiphany. Some of us have had both. But yeah, it is one of those things that sometimes you choose it, sometimes it chooses you, but that service has to appeal to the inner part of you. You can't be something that you can't do it because it's cool, because all of us know we've done hard stuff in the mill, that there are times, 46 kilometers in, you're like, man, this is like hard. This is not fun. I'm not enjoying any of this, but there's a bigger picture at the end. I want to be a part of something better than what I was doing before. I want to serve at a higher level. And that is expensive. That is freaking expensive. It's not just a whim, like, oh yeah, like I said, back to what Glenn said. He just was like, no, this is what I need to do. And people go, you're crazy. Be like, okay, that's your opinion. That's exciting. Whatever. But it's something that you feel. Back to the bigger point. The sense of service comes from inside. You understand something in you that it is unmoved or unfazed by what other non-connected people say. The people you grew up in school with or went to university with or whatever. That it's immaterial. And I think that's when you know where you need to be and what you need to do. For my path in the military, once I got to a certain spot, and I'm like, I'm going to do this until they break me or kill me, but I'm never going to leave unless they force me to. At that point, all I wanted to do was get better, go to the next unit, the next higher level, whatever. And it didn't make a difference to me what someone else said. I had already made the decision. I think that's the service inside of you. It's not something external pushed into you. You can learn about it from external sources and you can refine your understanding of it, but they're not just going to go, guess what? You're going to be a servant, because that's called servitude. That's not the same thing,
Absolutely. Shaun, any additional points?
I do. When I joined, as we've already discussed, as young men, perhaps we didn't understand the level of service that we were going to serve at, and perhaps we didn't understand the truer definition of service within ourselves. We can serve externally, but I think along the ride, you've got to figure out truly what the internal definition of it means to you. And so, Chance, you had played around with ChatGPT, but ChatGPT doesn't have a soul. It's a large language model that is soulless. And the four of us right now, we all have souls that we can feel the world around us. We can see the world, but we can also feel the world, maybe at a spiritual level or at an internal level. And so I think my first point is this, that you can serve for a period of your life, and perhaps that becomes your way of life. But I think, like for myself as an example, even though my way of life was serving, through all my various careers, I was always helping others. I was serving in various ways, but I didn't feel like I was serving. Those are just reflections on the past where I can connect the dots and say, oh yeah, served. But there was a middle period there where I didn't feel that I was serving. I was just doing. And I think there's a difference between feeling and doing. And so now I'm going to make my second point to kind of hammer it home with an exclamation mark. The whole The Collective podcast is service. Every day that we come over here, we're serving. And at one point, a while ago, before The Collective existed, I had a freaking awesome high-performance race coaching company for 15 years. I'm down here in Australia with 2 athletes that I coach for over a decade each. And I love on them. That's why I'm here in Australia, not as their coach anymore, because I'm serving them right now, because I have a connection to them right now, because I have a connection to my fellow man right now. I worked for them. I couldn't have cared about how much they were paying me. I'd have done it for free. I'm doing this for free. And so there's a time in your life, I think, for me anyway, where I served, I understood service, I continued to serve, but then I kind of lost my sight of what it feels to serve. I was just serving. Well, now I feel it again. And so I felt it when all of my friends were saying, bro, you've got to get in front of a microphone. Dude, you've got to do something for veterans. Dude, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I was like, screw that. I'm busy. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't want any of that nonsense. I don't want a microphone. And so one of my friends, Tim Turner, had said, are you familiar with the statistics of suicide and mental health issues in the Canadian Armed Forces and the veteran space? And I said, no, because I wasn't in that game. I kind of left the veteran community to serve other communities. And he said, well, take a look at it. And so I did. Dude, that sucked. That made my life go like this to that. I was in a completely opposite direction. And when I read those statistics, I couldn't unsee them. I felt it inside of me. I felt the service again. And so what do you do with that moment? You either embrace it and get right with the program and go on and smash, or you shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, I feel it, but screw that. I ain't changing my life because I'm a Wall Street banker. And so you can chase all the money, you can chase all the glory, you can chase all the fame, and those are external things. At some point, if you feel the feels inside, if you have that internal sense of, oh, wow, I kind of forgot what it means to truly feel service, even though I was serving before I felt that feel, well, there's no looking back if you're righteous. And so, it's not that I threw away my company. I gave it away. And now I'm doing this, which isn't a company. And it certainly isn't driven by financial gain or any other gain. Here's my only gain on what we're doing right now. I know we're doing good. We're being helpful. I know that in this very conversation right now, the things that the guests say will encourage others to sit down perhaps later today and think about service in a different way. Maybe service inside of them, maybe the service inside of them that they once used to feel, but maybe they haven't fully forgotten. It's just faded away a little bit over time, like it did for me. Though I was fully serving right up to all my life, there's a phase there where I started to lose the feeling internally of what service truly means to me. And I think it means to a lot of people who understand what I'm saying. So as Mike said, the epiphany, I think, isn't a one and done. I had an epiphany just before we kicked off the collective of like, oh, well, here we go. I don't know, but I feel it and I got to do something about it. And there's the epiphany. And where's it taken us to this conversation today? And so I hope that by relaying that and closing the loop on my goofy little story, that some others out there will understand that if you're serving, check in with if you're feeling that you're serving. And if you aren't, maybe take a moment to re-engage the internals or the spirit of what service means.
I like that a lot. I have a thought on it, but I want to get some other thoughts on it too. Glenn, what are you thinking on what Shaun just went over?
I could just listen to Shaun all day. He's like butter. He's just smooth. I got nothing.
Roger that. Mike, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think all of us go through the same thing. Kind of seconding what Shaun said. There's a cycle or a stair step or when I've caught myself is when I lose the fire. When the fire's gone, I'm like I'm lacing my boots back up, putting my ruck back on because that's what I do. I'm like, man, where's the reward here? The money's not the reward for all you people watching. Like, Yeah, money is a tangible reward, but it's not the reward that you're looking for. Because in the end, you can have a pile of money and live in an empty mansion. I've known people that have done it. I've known a bunch of them. So there's got to be something bigger, a higher purpose that has a value that you can't buy. And that's the thing. It's like you have to that the whole service piece. But sometimes when you catch yourself in that doldrum, you got to tack and go in a different direction. You've got to find something. You've got to find what puts the fire back in your soul. Otherwise, you'll wake up 5 years later and go, wow, I burned up 5 years. And now I'm starting where I should have started 5 years ago and I just gave up time. That's your most scarce resource. So check in, again, take Shaun's words, check in with yourself. Go, am I doing what I want to do? And when you look at that, when you make that when you pose that question to yourself, stop looking at dollar signs. Okay, stop. Just for all you people out there that listen, stop looking at dollar signs and look inside of you and go, does this feel good? Is this what I want to be a part of? Because something I learned a long time ago from my grandfather, was a brilliant guy. He said, people will always pay extremely well for someone that is excellent at what they do. If you're smashing whatever trade you pick, you're great at it, you'll always do fine. Because there's not a lot of people that want to put that kind of work in. And there's not a lot of people that can put that work in because they have to feel it inside. If you love something, you'll give it 100% because you want to, you desire to. And what you'll realize when you reach a flat point, when you reach a doldrum, that you're given 70%. It feels like 100% because you're planing the whole way. Okay, and that's where that portion of it, like you have to check in with your own freaking internal GPS and go, which do I want to be going in this direction? Because where am I going to end up in 10, 20, 30K? Is it going to be where I want, or am I going to be at the base of a big mountain when I could have taken the pass? Okay, so that, to me, that sense of service, every time I catch myself, like when I wake up and it's just another day, I wake up and go, oh geez, and get up, I immediately stop and go, what's going on? Where's the fire at? Because at a certain point, from what I've seen in other people, if the fire goes out, just think about it. I mean, I'm sure all of us camp and hike and stuff. If the fire goes out, you can start it back up right away while the embers are still hot. You let that thing get cold, and you're starting all over again. And so when you start to feel the fire go out, check in with yourself and go, is this what I want to be doing? And overwhelmingly, it's not going to include dollars. It's going to include feeling like what you do matters. And I think there's a cycle to that. It never ends. It's got some ups and downs and some doldrums. Once you're aware of it, you'll go, okay, time to check in with myself and go, am I in the right direction?
I really like this, where we're going with this. I wrote down here when we, about halfway through here, that connection grants service. And I want to explain this a little bit, at least from what I'm hearing, is that in order to be of service, or to feel like you are of service, or to and to differentiate yourself from servitude, you need to have some sort of connection in depth. So whether that connection is to the person next to you, or to the idea of what it is you're doing, or to some larger aspect, I think, at least tell me if I'm off base on this, is that without that connection, or as that connection fades with time and distance and proximity and all those things, that's where you stop, that feeling of service disappears. But if you can maintain that connection to something, to whatever it is, or switch it to something that is, pivot something else, then that aspect, that feeling of service can continue. What do you guys think? Glenn, come to you first.
Yeah, like I when you're doing a ruck march and it's in the winter and you're at home and you're just doing it for physical exercise and you're going in a loop, I get more tired quicker than I was in going through the great fields of Afghanistan, because I knew what I was doing was going to be helping a bigger cause. When I'm doing a ruck march, around my cul-de-sac to lose a couple of pierogi weight from Ukraine, it's less rewarding. I have, like what Mike said, you don't get paid very well for service if you're doing it for the right reasons. And I agree 100%. But you get paid in other ways. And right before we went on, we were talking, and like when I went to Ukraine for the first 2 months, I was evacuating women and children. Well, I didn't know what that path was going to lead me down. I didn't know that I was going to end up being an instructor with the Ukrainian army. I didn't know that I was going to end up meeting my wife And I did not know that my wife was going to come back to Ukraine after I evacuated her to be a translator. I know that, fast forward a year and a bit, and now we have a 2-month-old baby. So like, yes, we don't get paid, but you get paid in like that galaxy or however it's gonna, whatever you believe in is gonna pay you back 100-fold. So I agree with Mike that can't chase that dollar sign, but you will get paid back.
I like that a lot. Mike, got any thoughts?
Yeah, it's 100%. The best, and all the stuff that I did, the best, the most rewarding message I got, it was years later, and I was a ground combat advisor to a Marine unit, and from where I came from, I just more. You're from specialized units, you just have a better knowledge base from starting in the infantry, moving all the way through. So I was advising them on ways to do certain things, and then I would go out on combat operations with them, all that. And I got a message, and he had gotten it through like 3 or 4 different people. Like, ask a guy, do you know Pannone, or no? But I know this guy, and it went like 4 deep. He got to me, and he sent me a message 12 years later, and was like, hey, you may not remember me, but I was in this place at this time with you, and like literally they told me what my kit looked like, and because my rifle was different, what my rifle looked like, and what vehicle we were on, everything. And he said, just wanted to say thanks. What you did kept me alive. And he sent me a picture of his 3 kids. And he wasn't married when I met him. And it's like, you look at that, and again, we talked about the service part, you figure it out at the end. When that was going on, I was just next to some 19-year-old infantryman trying to keep him from getting shot. Okay. And it turns out that, who knows, man, maybe it's just random luck. Maybe I facilitated him getting to, grow older, get married, and have 3 kids. That you look at that, what you're doing is bigger than what you can possibly know until the back end of it. At the front end, you're just doing it because that's what you do. I was just doing counter ID stuff. But you don't realize that in that sense of service, along with that, my piece was not counter ID stuff with him. I was just being, a sergeant. I was like, hey, listen, I'm an infantryman, you're an infantryman. I got a better way to do this. And so it's like what I got from that, it was like another one of those little like things that the universe kind of throws you a solid every once in a while. It's like, hey, don't forget, like, keep doing what you know to be right. Okay, you know the right answer. No one's paying you extra for it. Sometimes people aren't even paying you at all for it. But down the road, the universe will throw you a feeling that you can't fake. You'd be like, wow, that sense of pride internally. That's something that you run around and put on billboards. You're like, wow, I actually, I made a difference in the long view. And I think that's the service part. It takes a long time for those to come back to you. That boomerang goes out, and it takes a while to come back, but it'll come back. Okay. If you leave too soon, it comes back and there's nobody there. It lands on the ground and you're not even there. So it's like, that's the sticking with it, making it 24/7. Like our comments, all of our comments, full circle. It's a lifestyle. It's 24/7, 365. It's every year. It's when you don't want to. It's when you're not getting a perk for doing it. You're not getting a pat on the bum or nothing. You're doing it because it's the right thing. And you go, you know what? I'm doing the right thing. I can live with that. That's all I need. And I think that part of it in the culture we live in, just to kind of tie it into a bigger thing, the whole social media culture is about, what do you have that's tangible? Oh, I got a cool new watch. Oh, look, I got whatever. It's like, that is not rewarding at all. And those people end up trying to purchase satisfaction, not earn it. And it's like, yeah, I learned that a long time ago. My grandfather told me too, rich people buy fun, poor people make fun. Like, you create it. And it's like, that's one of those things. If you don't, that sense of service, you have to create it within you. And you're not going to get the perks. You're not going to get the bennies until the backside. So if you're out there thinking about it, pondering it in your life, make it a point to go with your gut, go with what you know is right. And again, it sounds so cliche, but it'll sort itself out. Trust me on this, and trust every one of us have all lived it and learned it. It is irrefutable to me.
Yeah, 100%. Shaun, any thoughts?
Spitting the straight up truth, which is so hard to understand until you're at this point in your life. Like, it's, as a young man, I would have listened to that and thought, yeah, okay, I think so. But you think so, you just don't know. And you don't know until the back end. You you'd like to believe that you understand it when you're 20, 30, 40, but I think it takes a while to figure these things out. At least it took me a while, and I don't think I'm any different than a boatload of people that I've talked to have said the same thing to me. It takes time to feel these things out and recognize the real treasures that are being created in our lives inside of ourselves and externally for people that will never ever know anything about for the rest of our lives, but it's impacted them in positive ways. Mike had said, it's apropos since I am down in Australia right now, and he chucked out the boomerang example. And, I can think of a point when I was a young kid and living in England. We were pretty broke, and my dad had a friend who stopped by, and he was on there briefly. And if I understand the story correctly, this is what I was told. This fella used to work for Interpol, or was working for Interpol. And somehow he knew my dad stopped by, and he said, Shaun, I've got a gift for you. And he handed me a boomerang. He'd just come back from Australia. That boomerang is still hanging up on a wall in my house. I talked to that guy for 10 minutes, man. 10 minutes. But it was the first time any stranger had ever given me a gift. And the way he gave it to me was not like, hey kid, here's a boomerang. He was just freaking cool. He had a vibe. He had an energy. He was awesome. 10 minutes. And I still think about that boomerang, man. I didn't buy that boomerang. It doesn't represent the man. It represents the vibe. It represents the story that we can all live. How we can impact people in 10 minutes. How we can impact people in 30 seconds. I don't have to hand anyone a boomerang here in Australia, but in 30 seconds I can make an impact on them if I synchronize with the moment. I feel what I feel. I do the right thing. And if I do it well enough, they'll remember it for the rest of their lives. Just like all the other good people that I've bumped into that did the same for me when I was a young buck. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. And so, maybe our job is to throw boomerangs and wait to see if they come back to us. And I think our job is also, when it comes back, walk over and give it to a kid and say, have a good one, young'un.
Bam. You guys are making this really hard for me to follow up on these statements. You guys are fantastic. I also wanted to make a point about the boomerang as well, is that I think it really, like any boomerang, how hard you throw it matters, right? So if you kind of just flick it around the ground, it might come back to you a little bit, and I think that comes back to the random acts of kindness, right? You're just kind of tossing it to see what happens. Once you start really reefing on it to get that nice long flight and watch it kind of fall back, that's really, at least in my mind, where you can get those feelings are that much more apropos, I guess. It just like they're better feelings, at least in my mind. Because like I'll prior to my neighbor moving, he was an elderly gentleman. He was dealing with Parkinson's. He was, having a hard time about it. And my wife and I, without being asked, without engaging in any way, we just kind of looked over at each other and we're like, yep, I guess we're going to go rake his lawn and we're going to go shovel his walk. And like, without pomp, without circumstance, we weren't looking for thanks. We just knew that it needed to be done. And that's a small random act of kindness, right? And just a little toss of the toss of the boomerang. But do you think that perhaps in the physical act of service, like choosing to be a Leo, first responder, military, something like that, those are the leap of faith that we were talking about yesterday, where you just gotta give her, and whether that thing comes back or not doesn't really matter. Just the fact that you're winging it as hard as you can. Mike, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%. You get it's how you throw it, man. It's giving it your all. That's what the euphemism of throwing the boomerang or just kind of flicking it out there. You give it 100%. Get everything you got, and that's one of the things that I know is customary in everything from good infantry units to damn near every soft unit I've ever worked with, is give 100%. 100% today is not the same as 100% was yesterday and 100% is tomorrow, but 100% means giving it everything you've got. All I've got under the hood, I'm giving you every bit of horsepower. And if that's not enough, that's all I got. And there's no regret with that. It also gets, it launches things further forward into that continuum, that boomerang continuum. If I throw the boomerang and it falls in front of me, it did me no good. If I throw it and I see it take off and it's got legs now, it's going out there into the, into the universe, so to speak. It's going to see things that I don't see and interact with things that I can't, that I can't even begin to imagine. And maybe it stops there. Maybe it comes back around, but I've given it every bit of energy I could in a positive way. And I think that's something too, that there's a sense of discipline that ties into everything we're talking about, and the sense of service and all that. You've got to be giving 100%. You've got to give, you've got to bleed for it. You've got to do things when it really sucks to do them. Everybody, you guys probably got it up in Canada, but we got a saying, everybody wants to be a commando on a sunny day. It's like, that's not when when it's fun. That's not the job. Sorry. It's when it's not fun, when you don't want to give that extra 10%, that you have to give an extra 20. Okay. And so that whole idea of putting it out there, I think I agree with it. And just to like kind of trying to focus it a little bit, it's tied into a whole bunch of things. There's a spider web of things that you have to do to make your service count. And one of them is have the discipline to give 100% when you don't want to, and nobody's forcing you to. I think that's putting everything into that boomerang and going, okay, we'll see where it ends up. It might go into the trees, hit a tree and just fall. Who knows? It might come back around with something good. But it's like, if you didn't give 100%, and this is something that it has always driven me in all the different selection courses, because every unit I was in the military outside the infantry was an all volunteer unit with a selection process. I had to be able to look in the mirror in the morning when I'm shaving and go, I gave them 100%. If I didn't make it, that's all I had. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't hold 2% back and then sit there in the morning and shave and go, wow, if I'd given that 2%, maybe I would have made it. That's one of those things that the sense of service, if you really want to benefit from it, you want to get the most out of it. You want to have the greatest impact, the greatest reach, you have to give 100%. And that is that you only realize you're giving 100% when it hurts, when it's painful, when you're cold and tired and hungry and you don't want to do one more, but you have to do one more. That's why they say, on the fitness thing, the last repetition is where all the work's done. When your arms are burning or your legs are burning, they're on fire, and you feel like your heart's going to burst. That's when the work just started. And I don't think a lot of people, like, I grew up that way. That's the way I grew up in all the athletics I did in the military units. It's like when it really starts to suck, that we just started now. Like the training just began right now, just in case you don't know. And I think that part of the service and getting the satisfaction of service, that sacrifice internally has such a profound effect on the reach of your actions and how rewarding your life of service is.
Absolutely. Glenn, got any thoughts?
Yeah, and I do like that boomerang analogy. It's good, because I think every time someone that's committed, I believe myself, I'm committed to service. Every time I throw it, I'm still surprised when it comes back. And maybe that's just because I'm infantry and I shoot rocks, but like, that's what I think of. Like every time I put 100% into it, and then you get a whack in the back of the head by a boomerang, and you're still surprised because you're like, you put positive stuff in the world, and then you're still surprised when it comes back and just hits you in the head, right? Like it is a shock. But no, what you guys have said, I just 100% agree with. It's great.
Let me throw something in real quick.
Yeah.
Bro, Glenn, that's because you did it without expectation. What you just said, just to me, came across as I made that effort. I didn't even expect it to come back. I didn't know it's probably because you did it without expectation. It's just like that whole like kindness with expectation is not kindness. It's a business deal. Okay. It's an agreement. I'll do this and I get that in return. If you do something without expectation, that's selflessness or kindness. And that's the way it came across to me. Like, hey, I did the right thing, not expecting anything. And then boom, oh shoot, it came back around. Like that is the epitome of it. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Could not agree more. Shaun, any thoughts?
I love this one. So, that's such a great conversation. Thanks, fellas. If I was back in Canada right now in my office, I would have run downstairs into my basement, grabbed the boomerang, and shown you something on the boomerang. Because I think we don't have time to build it out, but I want to throw this in as a critical piece of the conversation. for others to chew on after we're finished the podcast. I would hold the boomerang up and say, you see that crack right there? You see the crack in the boomerang in the wood? That's when I was throwing it and I threw it wrong and it landed on the ground and cracked my boomerang. I went over and I picked up the boomerang as a kid and I looked at that and I thought, oh no, my boomerang. And at that point, I had to make a decision. Do I save my boomerang and maybe not break it? Or do I just keep on throwing and figure out how to throw this boomerang so that it doesn't crack anymore? So I just kept on throwing. And there's a bunch more throws later and some bangs on the boomerang. No, the crack didn't get worse. But eventually I started catching that boomerang. Eventually it came back to me. And so my point would be this, that even when you're giving it your all in service, sometimes you're going to get cracks in your boomerang. And you've, at that point, got to understand what your level of commitment is. We all take bumps and bruises. We all get scuffed up. And if we stopped once the scuff occurred, we would never fully understand service. Service is a sacrifice. But once you have felt that sacrifice, it's whether you continue to sacrifice or not, just like I did with my boomerang. That boomerang taught me a lot. And, I wish every kid could learn the things that I learned through chucking that boomerang and seeing the crack in it. So it's a thought out there for everyone to consider. Do you quit when the times get tough, or do you keep on serving?
This boomerang analogy is fantastic for this. I'm surprised because I would never have thought of it earlier, but it's very poignant. And I just want to get this across, and we'll do some final thoughts for the day. But is boomerangs especially, there's a technique to it. In order to do it really well, right? You got to have that right wrist flick, and there's something that you have to learn, as you said, Shaun. It's something that you need to learn specifically through trial and error. Because it doesn't matter how many times someone explains to you how to throw a boomerang, you're gonna screw it up 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 18, 22 times before you get that first real good throw and it goes, and you get that feeling of like, yes, I did it. And then it comes back to you. That's a whole nother ball of wax. So I do really love this. That it's such a great analogy for service in general. But we're just about at time. So let's get some final thoughts on the day, final thoughts on the topic. Anything at all? Glenn, I'm going to start with you. Final thoughts.
Oh, I think service is fantastic, and I'm excited to continue serving in different ways now. And I'm, as a new dad, I have a whole, I think she's like 5.5 kilos now. So I'm thinking it's a 5.5 pound or 5.5 kilo little girl that I get to serve in a different way. It's been exciting, and I can't wait to keep serving. Like I truly get excited to wake up and try my best, as your coffee cup says, their Chance. And yeah, I hope everyone gets a chance to serve, because you do get back, and just in a different way. It's through the universe somehow.
Absolutely. Mike, final thoughts?
Take every opportunity that you can out there to be genuinely of service in a dedicated way. If you haven't already done that, and you will be amazed at the feeling that you get from the sense of satisfaction. I've been that way all my life. That's all I've really known. I mean, I came right out of school and went in the military, so it's not like I had any other real experience other than that. And then over the years doing different things in different ways, it's still the sense of serving something that is greater than you is so satisfying. I'll always be doing something in that vein until I take the big nap. So people out there, try it out. I'm telling you, that life is not as arduous as you think. It's got its rough spots, but it is rewarding in a way, spiritually, a way inside that gives you a sense of esteem that you can't get without work. You can't get assigned that. You have to earn that one, but it is easily worth it.
Absolutely. Shaun, final thoughts?
And it's not just worth it for us, as Mike said, it is truly worth it, and it can only be understood by doing it. But it's not just us that gain from it, and it's not just people around us that we've served that gain from it. It's Glenn's daughter that is gaining from it, just as Glenn gained from his forefathers. I've listened to Glenn's story in the past. In fact, it's the first podcast I did, which goes back a little while. But Glenn's family line has served the country, and Glenn has served his country, and now he can explain to his daughter how she came to be through service for others. And I know for sure, just as Glenn is proud of his family, she will be proud of her dad. And I believe that if you set the people up around you, particularly your own family, to better understand what service means, it is an eternal gift that you can give them. And you can't buy that gift off of Amazon and hand it to anyone. It's something that has to be felt by them because you represent it.
Absolutely. I don't have much to add on top of any of that. It is, you know, I guess initially, the first thing you got to do is learn what service is. Learn what service you want to enter into. And then you can build upon that idea, and it can shape you, and you can grow into anything that you want to be. So, with that, you can do that here with us as well on the collective. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Chimo.